our channel. We are in our chapter 49 from Guide 10, that is our fetal and neonatal circulation. So actually we also covered it in our embryology. So once again let us, it's like just revision because we already covered it in our embryology. So what is first, let us see here the congenital heart disease. In the name itself you can see the word genital. Genital means something like congenital means it is coming genetically, or like mainly it is like the heart disease which is coming at the time of birth. So the congenital heart disease is a heart disease which is present at birth due to abnormal development of heart in utero. In utero means during fertilization only there is some abnormality in the baby, so because of that this heart disease are coming. Sorry, here the congenital means not genetically coming. I mean to say like it is coming when fertilization taking place in a uterus of a mother. So next, coming to left to right shunt. So you can say here from left to right means here we are talking about heart now, right? So from left heart to the right heart, the shunt means always it is like having a direct connection without following the normal pathway. So it is of course an abnormal flow of blood either from left heart to the right heart or from the systemic circulation to the pulmonary circulation, because left heart is mainly concerned with systemic circulation and right heart is mainly concerned with pulmonary circulation. So here the shunt is from systemic circulation to pulmonary circulation. Next, coming to right to left shunt. So here now you can easily predict it like from pulmonary circulation to systemic circulation or from the right heart to the left heart. So it's an abnormal flow of blood from the right heart to left heart or from the pulmonary circulation to systemic circulation. So next let us see when this is a main important one, when our heart start to begin to beat. So remember that just in the fourth week after the fertilization, just after the fourth week after the fertilization only our heart start to beat. And always we need to work like heart, because you see it beats how many times per minute, and also like it beats throughout our lifespan without any tiredness. So it's very inspirational meaning we need to take from heart. So you can see here fourth week after fertilization. So but in a baby time it's just beating like 65 beats, even it is like baby only beating like 65 beats per minute contraction, and it increases to like 140 beats per minute immediately before the birth. So just before the birth it turns automatically into 140 beats per minute. So now let us start our main topic, circulatory readjustment at birth. So how this circulation readjustment takes place? So first the breathing allow to increase the blood flow to the lungs, because before in a fetal like in neonate stage before birth the blood is not flowing to the lungs. So here because of breathing now the blood started flowing into the lungs, that to high blood flow to the lungs, and also increase in blood flow to the liver now. But before birth only little blood flow is going to liver. Before birth, once let us see before birth situations and after birth. So it's like before and after. So before birth what happens, actually lungs no blood flow, but for liver we have partial blood flow. Now after birth what happens, because of breathing as the air is entering in, now the lungs are working, so blood flow increases rapidly into the lungs, but only still now, even till now, still again only partial blood is flowing to the liver. Now let us see the anatomy of fetal circulation. So it's like this diagram actually shows a clear picture of fetal circulation. So always we need to start from placenta. Placenta plays a major role here in our fetal circulation. So first, here placenta actually acts as a lung, you can say. So but the only difference is here umbilical vein carries oxygenated blood. So you can see here the red color because it's oxygenated, whereas the umbilical arteries carry the deoxygenated blood, deoxy. So you can see that's why they are blue in color. So let us start our story from placenta. So from placenta, as it is giving oxygenated blood, that oxygenated red blood, you can see it is passing by umbilical veins. So from umbilical veins you can see as it is passing through liver, even our portal vein from GIT, portal vein, superior mesenteric, inferior mesenteric, celiac artery, three together, and its branches from pancreas, spleen, liver, spleen, GIT. So all those are collected into a portal vein. We know that blood comes into portal vein. So in the portal vein also joins this umbilical vein. So portal vein along with umbilical vein now pass through the liver. But remember that they try to bypass the liver mainly by passing into the ductus venosus. So this is one more fetal structure. So by passing into ductus venosus, they directly enter into the inferior vena cava without entering the liver sinusoids. Normally, at present in you or in me, now the blood flows into sinusoids from portal vein. But here in this case, in the fetus, it is different. That is we are now all talking before birth. After birth we'll discuss later. So before birth, this is the situation which is going on. So next, after the blood passes passing through the ductus venosus, you can see it is directly entering into the inferior vena cava. Of course, inferior vena cava is connected to our right atrium. So from inferior vena cava, blood enters into right atrium. From right atrium, here the twist comes. The blood now directly enters by means of a hole here, that is called as foramen ovale, in between our right atrium and left atrium. So now the blood directly enters from right atrium into the left atrium. So why it is entering? Because now it is an oxygenated blood. So the oxygenated blood now directly enters into left atrium. From left atrium, of course, it goes into left ventricle. From left ventricle, it enters into the aorta. Now aorta also has oxygenated blood. But remember, from aorta it only goes into, here we have our subclavian veins, brachiocephalic veins. So sorry, arteries, right? This is aorta, right? So with that, they mainly supply the blood to the head and also upper limb. But next, even to the right atrium, the blood also enters from superior vena cava, right? Means now from superior vena cava, as it is a vein here, of course deoxygenated blood comes. So the deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava also enters the right atrium. Now from the right atrium, it enters into the right ventricle, the normal flow. From right ventricle into pulmonary artery. And now here comes one more twist. So after entering into the pulmonary artery, normally, our blood should reach the lungs. But remember that in fetal, the lungs are non-functional. So the lungs are not playing any role before the birth. So now what happens? The blood directly shunts by means of ductus arteriosus. So here we got one more shunt. So both names are ductus because they are like duct-like system, but here venosus because here portal vein is joining it. Here arteriosus because it is present in pulmonary artery and it is connecting to aorta. So by means of ductus arteriosus, this venous blood, that is deoxygenated blood, enters into descending part of aorta. So you can see this is the descending part, this is the ascending part, right? Everyone knows this anatomy, general anatomy. So now this deoxygenated blood enters into descending part of aorta. So from the descending part of aorta, the deoxygenated blood travels and finally meets these two umbilical arteries. They also carry deoxygenated blood, and finally this deoxygenated blood is coming back to placenta. So this is how before birth the circulation in fetus is going on. Now we will understand it clearly now what is going on after birth. So here we are, anatomy of fetal circulation. So in fetal life we have seen that lungs are non-functional and liver is only partially functional because the blood is shunting by means of ductus venosus, right? And fetal heart should pump more blood only to the liver. Yeah, because fetal blood should pump only blood now only to the placenta because now placenta is only functional before the birth. So now the blood, the same pathway just we have discussed. Let us see in terms of theory part. So from placenta, blood comes to umbilical vein, and from umbilical vein it enters into ductus venosus, which is bypassing the liver. So from the ductus venosus, by means of inferior vena cava, it enters into our right atrium. So from the right atrium into foramen ovale. Foramen ovale, from left, it reaches into left atrium. So oxygenated blood is pumped to the head and forelimbs. Whereas, our right atrium also receives blood from our superior vena cava. So that is deoxygenated blood entering into right atrium. From that it enters tricuspid valve, of course, on the right side, and next into right ventricle. So by means of right ventricle, the deoxygenated blood from the head is pumped into pulmonary artery, and from pulmonary artery to ductus arteriosus, and again to the descending aorta, finally reaching the two umbilical arteries, again back to placenta. So in placenta again the blood gets oxygenated, and again this passes to the umbilical vein. Again back, the same circulation continues. This is all going on before birth. So approximately 55% of the blood goes by the placenta, and 45% blood pass by all tissues of our body. So remember, 55% major portion of blood in fetal life is going to placenta, and remaining 45% is going to the tissues. So 12% of the blood flow by the lungs, and after birth all blood flow goes to the lung. So remember, before birth only 15% of blood, because lungs are now non-functional, just they are sending only 15%. But after birth, most of the blood flow is going only to the lungs. So changes in fetal circulation at the birth, this is very important. So mainly there is decrease in pulmonary resistance and increase in systemic vascular resistance. So why this, you can understand why there is decrease in resistance, because what is resistance actually? So vasoconstriction, right? Whenever the blood vessels get constricted, means they are narrowed, so that there is higher increase in resistance. Whenever vasoconstriction takes place, there is low blood flow. So always remember, whenever there is low blood flow, there will be higher resistance. So you can see here, in pulmonary circulation now, as birth has taken place, so the blood flow is very high to the pulmonary. So now you can guess it, whenever there is high blood flow, means there is low resistance. So that's why there is low resistance to pulmonary circulation. Whereas in systemic circulation, still the blood has not entered, so it is having high resistance. So what are the primary changes after the birth? The first one is loss of blood flow by the placenta. Why? The baby is born. So when the baby is born, of course, we need to remove the baby from the placenta side. So some of the placenta may go hemorrhage and may leak out. So because of this, there is lot of blood flow in the placenta. So because of lot of blood flow, as I said, there is decrease in blood flow, means it double increases the systemic vascular resistance at birth. So because in turn, as the systemic resistance is increased, in turn aortic pressure also will increase, of course, and also the pressure in left ventricle and left atrium are also affected, because aortic pressure is mainly depend it mainly affects the left side of the heart, because left ventricle need to pump the blood against the aortic pressure. So that is the reason. So second change is pulmonary resistance is decreased, mainly due to expansion of lungs and also due to vasodilation in aeration. Aeration means more air is coming now, so the vessels are also dilated. And but in the case of unexpanded lung, actually what happens is the blood vessels are compressed. This is important. In unexpanded lung, the blood vessels are compressed. So because of this, there is vasoconstriction and also there is hypoxia. So because of the small volume of lung, now you can understand, in unexpanded lung there is higher resistance, whereas in expanded lungs there is lower resistance. So the pulmonary arterial pressure is also dropped, because our pulmonary pressure is dropped, and also right ventricular pressure is dropped, and right atrial pressure is also dropped. So next, the third step which takes place is closure of foramen ovale. So foramen ovale, we have seen it is present mainly between a right atrium and left atrium. Why this closes? Let us see here. So because of increase in left atrial pressure and decrease in right atrial pressure, normally in our lung now also, in our heart now also, the left atrial pressure is somewhat 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury higher when compared with the right atrial pressure. So because of this reason, you can always know the pressure gradient, where always the fluids or the blood tries to move from high pressure gradient to low pressure gradient. So now as the left atrial pressure is very high, the blood tries to move from left atrial side to the right atrial side. So because of this, you can see now the blood try to move backwards, that is from left atrium to right atrium. So small valve which is present on the foramen ovale closes it, so it prevents the blood flow backwards. So in two-thirds of the people, the valve is adherent, that is sticky, so that within few months or years only it becomes permanently closed. That's why even now in everyone the foramen ovale is permanently closed, or sometimes it may be open, then it is called as patent foramen ovale. But it is also not a problem if it open, but it prevent black backflow by closure of valve. It is not a problem if it prevents the black backflow, but if it is patent without any valve, then the backflow is also present, then it may be dangerous to the baby, because you can understand now that oxygenated blood gets mixed with the deoxygenated blood, and that too this oxygenated blood can never reach the systemic circulation now because of this backflow. So then it would be dangerous. But even though if it is patent, if there is no backflow of blood from left atrium to right atrium, then it is okay. So now let us see the fourth reason after the birth is closure of ductus arteriosus. So where is ductus arteriosus, which is connecting the aorta, which is connecting this pulmonary artery to the aorta, right? So now even this closes after the birth because of decrease in pulmonary and increase in systemic resistance. Because of this there is higher aortic pressure and lower pulmonary artery pressure. So after the birth, the blood begins to flow backward from the aorta into pulmonary. The same reason, because now higher pressure in aorta, lower pressure in pulmonary artery. So again, blood tends to flow backward from aorta to pulmonary artery, mainly through the ductus arteriosus, rather than in other direction as we have seen in the fetal life. So, but after the few hours, it closes within like 1 to 8 days. Constriction take place and completely stop the blood flow. So this is mainly called as functional closure. And by next 1 to 4 months, it becomes occluded by fibrous tissue into the lumen. So now finally it will get closed in a healthy individual, in a healthy baby. So because of this closure, now there is higher increase in oxygenation of blood flow by ductus, as well as loss of relaxing effects of PGE2. And PGE2, now this effect is lost because PGE2 tries to open the ductus arteriosus, but now we are saying it as closed. So now it is closed means there is loss of function of PGE2, right? So in fetus, the partial pressure of oxygen normally in ductus arteriosus is like 15 to 20 millimeters of mercury, but it may also increase to 100 millimeters of mercury within few hours after the birth. So, like in one among 1,000 babies, it may fail to close. This ductus arteriosus may fail to close, resulting in patent ductus arteriosus, mainly due to excessive dilation caused by PGE2. So sometimes whenever there is higher PGE2, PGE2 is a powerful vasodilator. So mainly when it is present, then our ductus arteriosus may be patent because of vasodilation, and also due to some administration of some drugs like indomethacin. So because of this, it may block, indomethacin actually block the synthesis of PGE2 and leads to the closure of ductus. So this is a treatment, it's not the cause, it is a treatment. That is, administration of indomethacin is a treatment because it blocks the synthesis of PGE2. If we now got to understand that PGE2 is the only problem which is causing patent ductus arteriosus. So if you close it, then the problem is solved. So you can give a drug like indomethacin, which blocks the synthesis only. If then PGE2 is not at all synthesis, you can understand now the ductus arteriosus can constrict and it can be closed. Now let us check out the fifth one. What is going after birth is closure of ductus venosus. Ductus venosus, where it is present? It is present in a uh, uh, you know umbilical vein passing with portal vein or reaching the inferior vena cava directly bypassing the liver. So that is the ductus venosus. So in fetal life, the portal blood from the fetus abdomen joins the blood mainly from the umbilical vein, and together they pass by the way of ductus venosus directly into the vena cava. So the same thing what we have said, this umbilical vein along with portal vein passes by ductus arteriosus directly into the inferior vena cava by bypassing the liver. That is which is going on in a liver, in that too in a fetal life. So after birth, the blood flow of umbilical vein ceases, but most of the portal blood still flows by ductus venosus with only small amount flowing by liver channels. So even though our umbilical vein is ceased, that is stopped, still some blood of course will flow to the ductus venosus. But within 1 to 3 hours, the muscle wall of ductus venosus contracts strongly and closes. So the portal venous pressure is very much increased, like it may increase from zero value to like 6 to 10 millimeters of mercury. So because of this high pressure in the portal venous pressure, this leads to forcing of blood to move from the portal vein to the liver sinusoid. So because of this, the normal flow starts now and the ductus venosus is closed. So this is the normal mechanism. And next, coming to the functional problems in circulation of neonate. So what may be the functional problems? The first problem is blood volume. So normally after birth, the average blood volume is like about 300 milliliters. But if infant is attached to the placenta for few minutes or after the birth, then or if umbilical cord is stripped to force blood out of its vessels. So like it's these are the abnormal cases, like sometimes the baby got attached completely to the placenta, then we try to forcefully remove the placenta, it may lead to hemorrhage and lot of blood volume is lost. And sometimes umbilical cord also may be stripped means cut off. Sometimes umbilical cord may be cut off, and because of this some extra amount of blood may also enter into the baby. Let us see this. is stripped to force the blood out of its vessel into the baby. So because of this additional 75, normally 300 milliliters of blood is present in a blood volume is present in baby, but now because of stripping off of umbilical vein, additional 75 milliliters of blood may also enter into the infant. So the total changes into 375 milliliters. So later the fluid lost in the tissue spaces, because now there is more fluid, right? So it may also lead to some mild edema, especially like in pulmonary side, and also increase the hematocrit. Hematocrit means the amount of RBC which is present in total blood. So hematocrit increases because now more blood has entered into the baby, but the blood volume return again to the normal like 300, because now some of the fluid is lost by means of edema because of increase in hydrostatic pressure. So the blood volume again comes back normal to 300 milliliters of mercury. Sorry, 300 milliliters. It is not mercury here because it is not pressure, it is blood volume. So extra blood volume from stripping of umbilical cord cause mild pulmonary edema, and it is also sometimes associated with respiratory distress. But this extra RBC are always valuable to the infant because infant is in growing stage. So this extra RBC may not be a problem. Increase in hematocrit may not be a problem, but increase in hydrostatic pressure may be a problem because it may cause mild edema and also some mild case of respiratory distress. Now let us see about cardiac output in fetus. So cardiac output of neonate average about like only just 500 milliliters per minute, and the child born when the child is born, the cardiac output may decrease. Why? Because of hemorrhage of placenta. Whenever we are trying to drag the baby out from the mother, some of the placenta may rupture and hemorrhage may takes place. So most of the blood volume by placenta may be lost at the birth. So because of this loss, the cardiac output also decreases in the baby after the birth. And it's coming to arterial blood pressure. So arterial pressure, one day after the birth, the average of arterial pressure is like about 70 milliliters of mercury, that is in systole, and 50 millimeters of mercury in the diastole. And it slowly increases like up to next several months to like about 96 by 60. So before you can see it's like 70, systolic pressure is 70, but it has increased to 96 after few days and like after few months. And next you can see diastolic pressure after the birth is 50, but later it may increase to 60. So in next years until like adult, it may reach until adult pressure like 115 by 70 is attained at the adolescence. So always remember 115 is the systolic pressure in adolescence and 70 is the diastolic pressure in adolescence. So next coming to abnormal circulatory dynamics in congenital heart disease. So in congenital heart disease, how the circulation is abnormal, let us see. So mainly we are having three types which is associated with heart or either associated with blood vessels. So the first one is stenosis. So stenosis, because of stenosis, of the blood flow at the heart or closely related to any major blood vessel may undergo stenosis. And second congenital abnormality is anomaly of blood flow from left to right. So sometimes there may be some kind of problems like because of that the blood